Before we start, please note that the opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Trampoline Media.
You are listening to Indian Teens Unfiltered,
a trampoline media podcast
where teenagers across India
speak their mind about things that matter to them
and issues close to their heart.
You are listening to part 2 of our special series, The Queer and the Curious. In case you haven't heard part 1, please listen to it first. We've been talking to Jia, Mai, Sage, and Ria, our fabulous and amazing teen guests. Some of them identify as queer, while some of them are staunch allies of the LGBTQ community. Now over to them. Okay, hi again, everyone. I want to now talk about the other big part of every teenager's life, which is the school. So, what kind of support have you seen from your school? Are the other students accepting and respectful of gender identity and sexual orientation? Sage, do you want to talk about it first?
I have faced the worst homophobia. Like, I have seen it in schools and especially from like teenage boys. And it's just evil. Like, why would you just say really, really bad slurs and use derogatory words for a person when he's clearly not in any way queer or anything? Like, why is it considered an insult for you? Why is your ego this big or anything? Like, to the point, like, right now I am so over it, and finally, like, after coming out, to be very honest, I gained confidence and I started calling out all this stupidness. They're just like, joke, it's a joke, don't take it so seriously. No, it's not a joke. It's someone's sexuality and someone's identity.
True. Yeah, Mai, you want to talk about? Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to add to what Sage was talking about. So she said that, for example, if a guy who is not part of the LGBTQ community, but someone at their school bullies them, that might lead to them having a bad experience with the word gay. And that might end up leading to a lot of homophobia from them because they were ridiculed for being gay when they're not gay. So that might cause them to think, oh, it must be a bad thing if someone's gay, right? So I shouldn't like them either. That I personally think is like a huge factor in this.
I believe that there's not enough education also about empathy and mental health. Then it's weird because I remember that when I was also in school, I remember that I would look at that guy who's a little feminine in a way which I would feel, oh, he's just gay and stuff like that. I've done that myself, and I'm super guilty about it. And perhaps I was also feeling that perhaps he is getting to express himself. Why can't I didn't have that guts to express myself. I was the person who's not expressing myself fully. I was not confident, but that guy was. So we do that a lot of times, and very unconsciously. Like, if we see a girl who's a little masculine, we would just say, oh, just a tomboy. You don't have to put your stereotypes over people. Just accept what people come out to you. There are people who come out to me as polyamorous. For example, I personally don't believe in polyamory. I'm a very monogamous person. But I would just accept that person because it's their experience of love. It's their experience of intimacy. That is how we should take things, like with a lot of empathy and respect. Yeah.
Yes, empathy and respect. Two very, very, very important words, Ria. Jia, you wanted to say something.
Like my school, to go international school, Delhi, we have a campaign, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, Breaking Barriers. Like, it's a campaign for human rights, mainly focusing on LGBTQI rights. And it started in 2014, and we've come a long way. And thankfully, I can say that I haven't experienced anything like Sage has. Like, I sympathize for you, but I am just so thankful that none of the teenage boys in my school are homophobic. And I think that's a major, major step in the right direction.
Tell us more about the Breaking Barriers campaign, Jia.
Right. So, like I said, it initiated in 2014 We have interacted with many, individuals who are part of the community, or even if, they're allies. I think most of you would be familiar with Prince Manvendra Singh Gohil. He's the first openly gay prince, like openly out as gay prince. We have interacted with him on many occasions. But yeah, like recently on 6th September, to celebrate the decriminalization of Section 377, I interacted with Raga de Silva. So she came out at the age of 50, right? So she has a lesbian partner and she has two grown up kids. So it's just being a part of this campaign, it not only, made me realize my own sexuality, it also, made me comfortable with my friends' sexualities. Because before that, I just thought being straight is the only thing, that ever existed. But then, this campaign has helped me a lot. Like, I can't even explain in words. This campaign is basically half of my life right now, because it's helped me, it's helped my friends. I think it might have even helped a few teachers, identify themselves and their sexualities, because we conduct sessions with students from other schools, students from our schools. We conduct sessions all over India. And I think I'm proud of us.
It's absolutely awesome.
Basically, like I said, we want to make life better for the LGBTQI community, right? So we prepare presentations, like we conduct sessions with schools from all over India. We conduct sessions with corporates. We conducted one with Amazon as well. There aren't many schools willing to collaborate with us, actually, because they themselves are not aware of this. They don't have such campaigns. Or maybe they don't want to have such campaigns, because most Indians, they think if you tell a child that this is gay, they might become gay. Like it's a infectious disease and they'll just catch gayness. And that's just hilarious, I feel. And yeah, this breaking stereotypes and myths, everything from A to Z, we try to cover in 1 to 2 hour sessions. And yeah, making people accept this community and become allies is our main aim.
First of all, this is a great initiative. Like honestly, I don't know you, Gia, but like I think I'm a fan of you now. And honestly, I am thankful myself that you never faced homophobia in your school, because I am very happy that you didn't, because it's a really bad experience. And also the thing of contracting gayness, this is the weirdest concept that I as a person have seen. Like it's like, did I study Nazism and become Hitler and commit genocide? No, I didn't. So it's just such a messed up topic at this point.
So the principal we had earlier, she wasn't completely against it. So we did have one session in which they kind of briefly talked about the LGBTQ community, but it was more for gender equality, which is again, it's a lot considering it's coming from an Indian person. But newer principal was like, sorry, I don't want to talk about that kind of stuff in our school because we don't know how our parents would feel about it and we don't want to get any complaints.
It's just so important for educators and parents and just generally the environment in the school to be sort of uh, positive. Ria, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I feel like LGBT in general is seen in a very sexualized light. The first time that we get to know about LGBT identities is often through pornography. I was exposed to, say, being gay or lesbian through pornography, and that was not the, I think it was not like the perfect kind of representation that I wanted at that young an age. I wanted somebody who's a real life queer and I could look up to them and say, oh, I am that, because we don't talk about a lot of things in India. We don't talk about sex, we don't talk about safe sex, we don't talk about our own bodies, sexualities, and stuff like that. So I feel like on top of that, LGBT is often sexualized. Like for me, as a lesbian, uh, let's say woman, I've heard things like, oh, you have not met the right man, or it's of course it's just a phase and stuff like that. I feel like Of course, in a patriarchal country, being lesbian, being an assigned female at birth, and then having to follow the entire culture of being a proper woman and stuff like that, it adds up a lot of layers. And that is what I've realized. Like, even for lesbians in the community, it gets very difficult to have our voice. Also, a lot of people say, oh, it's not a cultural thing, it has come from the West. But we often also forget that India has had the richest culture of having queer representation in our scriptures, but we often forget that too. So, I mean, it's again a discussion, and yeah, Gia, go ahead.
I just like to, assist your points by an example. Khajuraho temple, I think it's a very well known temple that has, statues and paintings of same sex relationships. So I just wanted to assist Ria's point with that. But going ahead with my own point, first thing I'd like to say is that not just the LGBT community faces discrimination nowadays, but one wrong way that Gen Z is going is kind of bullying the straight people, because I have seen this myself. Because, like, if a person is straight, like openly straight, some queer individuals will, attack them and say, oh, you're so boring, you're so normal, you're so colorless, and something like that. And I just feel, if queer individuals don't want bullying to happen to them, then why, the double standards? Because being straight is not a choice, being queer is not a choice, it's just something that's inbuilt in you. And second thing, this might come off at homophobic, but trust me, that is not my intention. I feel like this community should not be a community at all. And just hear me out. Community, as in, I don't want, communities to be divided on the basis of their sexuality or gender identity. I feel like humans are humans, right? So as a species, where are we going by dividing ourselves? Like, the black community, the white community, the brown community, the LGBT community.
I definitely get what you're saying, that dividing us into groups won't help with like moving forward, and what the whole fight is about, that we are one and there's no difference. But then right now, like, we are progressing, but we still have so many people who are not open to the idea of homosexuality. So I think that's kind of the reason why we tend to build a wall around us and try to stay in the community, because that feels like a safe space for us.
And at this point of time, we need that kind of a sense of support, because a lot of people don't get that. And that allyship at this point of time is very important. So I think that segregation of, okay, being queer and people who are allies at this point of time is important for progressing, until we reach a point where we have all our laws and everybody in our country knows about that laws. For the fact that we have section 377 struck down, but there are people who don't know that queer people exist in our country. I mean, we can also get same-sex marriage legalized in our country tomorrow. But what if I bring my partner at my home, and if we live together, would the neighbors be okay with it? Would they harass me? If they would, then I would rather not be open about it. I don't want to get through that emotional turmoil yet again. So I think, yes, at this point of time, we have to normalize it, but perhaps still hold on to that sense of community and go ahead and fight what we have to.
How safe do you feel when you're out in public spaces? And whether you're out or you're not out, but just as members of the LGBT community and as young adolescents, how safe do you feel?
Actually, I used to sit with our class topper, and she was a very active bully of mine. So, since then, my mind was very much into I don't want to meet with people. People may hurt me. And that just happened more and more as I realized I was queer. So, right now, I don't feel comfortable going out being myself or anything. And I hope someday that will change.
I was actually happy that I don't have to travel anymore to college or to work, and face the discrimination and harassment on a daily basis, and just be in my own bubble, in a safe bubble and function as a very, I don't know if it's right to say that, but a visibly queer person, I feel like uh, I'm more vulnerable to the discrimination and harassment that happens, even at public places, or I've been kicked out of the train just because I looked like a boy. Even in my own college, there was an incident when I was not allowed to access the female washroom because they thought that I was not a woman. Even with me being privileged, I still have to face that, so I am still lucky. But then I think about what about people who don't have that kind of privilege, right? There's just more layers of discrimination. And I mean, that's very traumatic also. After a point of time, it just gets on so much into your functioning and your mental health that you just go down on your self image, how you think about yourself, or do you even deserve to function in the society and stuff like that. But I still feel like we talk about it in privileged spaces. Schools talk about it. We conduct these sessions in English. What about people who don't study in schools or who don't know English, right? And even online, if a person knows that we are queer, we are just the first victim that they see, to first bully, to send unsolicited messages, images, and stuff like that. Even the dating area that's there, it's very discriminatory towards queer individuals. I mean, I think Grinder is a dating app for gay men, and they don't feel safe in it because they don't find love. They just find unsolicited images everywhere. That for women, there's nothing dedicated to them to find love, stuff like that. There was a debate on Instagram recently. It just knows when you're talking about COVID-19 or you're talking about vaccination, it writes an entire thing, right? Why don't we do that for homophobic messages, or why don't we do that for sexist messages? It's easy to detect it. And why is India so behind? I mean, there's also this feature of putting up pronouns after your name. That's a feature inbuilt in Instagram, and India does not have it. These are all the things that's there, and we need to talk about it.
LGBTQI plus community is not recognized or legalized in India, which I'm still finding a bit, it's nonsense. Why isn't it legalized? What is the government finding wrong about it that they still haven't taken this step yet? Like, decriminalization is obviously a good step, and I think um, people here might have watched Shubh Mangal Zada Savdhan. So that has an amazing portrayal. Like, according to me, it was a brilliant portrayal of our community. So yeah, such movies, if such movies are more in media, then maybe people will start accepting, and that will lead to normalization, and that will finally lead to safety of queer individuals.
Yeah, just a bit about how I remember when Shubh Mangal's Zada Savdan Han came in, I was sitting with my friends, right? And I was telling them how much I hate that movie. Uh, just for the fact that, okay, again, I am actually supporting both the ideas of Jia and Mai, how we are done with that. We are done with families being dramatic over Section 377 and partnership and stuff like that. I mean, okay, I get it. That's not all about our lives. And, Gia talks about normalizing it. Okay, yes, Section 377 was a big deal, but it was also about how I live my life otherwise. You know, me being gay is not just about me being gay, it's also about me functioning in the society, which is also about me having a career or me now following my spiritual path. So for me, that film was just an exaggeration of our lives, which is not really true, you know. And I would rather have like a much subtler representation of how we dealt with Section 377.
We need representation right now. It doesn't matter whether the actor is part of the community or not. All I personally care about is the writing, and if the writing is stereotypical or not. Like, the actor has to be famous for the movie to reach mainstream media, right? Shubh Mangal Jadhav Savdhan had Ayushman Khurrana. So that's the main reason. Like, if there wasn't any famous actor, then it wouldn't have even, even I wouldn't have watched it, personally speaking. So, I mean, for now, famous actors need to be taken. It doesn't matter what their sexuality is, because we need representation at the very least. We want equality, but more than that, we want equity.
I would now like to talk about relationships. I'm sure they're not easy.
I feel like queer relationships are as complicated or as simple as straight relationships in itself. The society makes it hard. For the fact that a lot of people are not come out, it gets difficult to find people who really, who you really connect to. For the fact that also we don't have dating sites, and the idea of queer relationship, it's still very sexualized, so a lot of people are not opening up about themselves. And even within it, for me it's been very difficult also because of my gender identity. A lot of times, even with women that I date, it takes a lot of time to explain them how I function with my gender, because it's very fluid. So I think like the only difference that I see with queer relationships is the kind of conversations that we have. It's much more on a positive side, also because of the complications that are there. We talk about how we are going to take ahead our relationship, also because it's not legal in India. So we have that kind of conversation. We talk about our identities, we talk about gender. And I feel like once we are more accepting to queer individuals in general, we'll have more people come out. We'll have more people date openly. Also, with the entire thing that, we can't marry, we can't be, partners in a lot of way, we cannot adopt and all of that. I feel until we reach a point of time where we are okay with such relationships, it's going to be hard.
My last question would be about being an ally. How can one be a good ally?
According to me, being an ally is being accepting and realizing the first pride statement: love is love.
There are three A's to becoming an ally: acceptance, awareness, and advocacy. So these basically, in easy language, acceptance is just knowledge that yes, this community exists and you are nobody to say anything bad towards them or about them. So once you accept it, you need to be aware yourself, and only then can you advocate for it. Because if you yourself are, you have the wrong knowledge or half knowledge, that is the biggest enemy of humankind. Being an ally is just normalizing the usage of pronouns. You can, whenever you're talking to somebody, just ask them what their pronouns are. Do not assume at all. And then the only thing that you can say when a person comes out to you, according to me, is thank you for trusting me with this piece of information and, confiding in me and finding me trustworthy enough. That is basically what I feel is becoming an ally.
So I just wanted to add, for being an ally, firstly, you don't need to like get a rainbow tattooed on you, and you don't need to go to pride festivals. That's not what being an ally is. You just need to show your support to the person, and you just need to let them know that you're there for them.
Each of you have made such a valid point. Thank you. I really wish we could continue this conversation, but we'll have to end it now. Ria, Gia, Sage, Mai, thank you for being so candid and honest on this podcast. It was just superb talking to you. You are all so brave and courageous, and we hope to see you again soon.
I would just like to thank everyone here for listening to me and just being so cool.
I feel like this was just my ranting space, right? I haven't been this open with my own friends.
And for our listeners who wish to participate in the podcast or would like to stay updated, please follow us on Instagram or Facebook or visit our website trampolinemedia.in.
If you are queer or curious, inside or outside the closet, or even on the fence, and are looking for more information or resources or support on this topic, do head to our link tree on Instagram. Indian Teens Unfiltered podcast has been created by Neha Jain and Ann Doshi from Trampoline Media. This episode was hosted by Neha Jain and the audio was edited by Ahan Shah from Music Boutique. This episode would not have been possible without the support of Vedika Saxena, Shamir Tandon, and Sunil Doshi. A big thank you to all of them.